Hello and welcome to another 9-minute Bible study. Our starting point is going to be the book of Acts chapter 1 verses 9 to 11. The book of Acts chapter 1 verses 9 through 11. When we left off in our last lesson, Jesus told his believers to wait in Jerusalem. They were to wait for the promise of the Father. After that happened, they would have the power to operate as believers, as a church, to be witnesses, to tell others about the Christ, the cross, and the resurrection. And then they would take this to their Judea, to their Samaria, and to the uttermost parts of the world. When Jesus said this, when he was finished, the following happened, starting with Acts chapter 1 verse 9. And when he had spoken these things, what did he just say? Ye shall receive power. While they beheld, he was taken up, and a cloud received him out of their sight. Jesus ascended back to the Father, verse 10. And while they looked steadfastly toward heaven as he went up, and let's be honest, if we saw this, our eyes would be fixed on the sky also. This is something you do not see every day. Behold, two men stood by them in white apparel. Two angels, they appear and they walk up to the group, which also said, Ye men of Galilee, why stand ye gazing up into heaven? There is no need for the believers to look up into the sky any longer. This same Jesus, which is taken up from you into heaven, the Jesus who ascended back to the Father, shall so come in like manner as ye have seen him go into heaven. Jesus will come back. The same way he left is the same way he is returning. There is always a hope aspect for the believers. The hope, the coming back of Jesus. Now, once the disciples and the believers heard this, verse 12, they returned unto Jerusalem from the mount called Olivet, which is from Jerusalem a Sabbath day's journey. In other words, the believers obeyed the words of Jesus. Jesus said, return to Jerusalem and wait for the promise of the Father. What did the disciples, what did the believers do? They returned to Jerusalem and they waited for the promise of the Father. There is no move of God without the believers individually and as a group being in obedience to God. When we are in obedience, we will see the power of the Holy Ghost in operation. Verse 14. These all continued. Remember what we said. The time element. If we want a move of God, if we want to see the Holy Ghost move in a new and powerful way, there will be a time commitment. That means we must make the time in order to seek this. When we make the time, then what we want will become a priority in our lives. When we give our time, something is now a priority in our lives. In this case, seeking the power of the Holy Ghost. These all continued with one accord. That means unity. The group is united as one. All 120, as mentioned a few verses later, they are in this room with one purpose in mind. It isn't just enough that they're all there. They are all there for the same purpose, to receive the baptism in the Holy Ghost. The time element, the unity element, and not just unity, but wanting the exact same thing. Next, in prayer. These all continued with one accord in prayer and supplication. Every move of God, from this original one on Pentecost all the way to the present time, every single move of God comes out of a prayer movement. If you look at the history of the church, when you see a praying church, you will see a move of God. The two go together. You cannot have one without the other. For the next 10 days, the group united with one purpose. They give their time. And they are there for one reason, to wait for the promise of the Father, which Jesus promised unto them. On day 10, book of Acts chapter 2, verse 1. And when the day of Pentecost was fully come, they were all with one accord in one place. When the day of Pentecost was fully come, it is now 10 days since the ascension. They are still giving their time to this move of God. If we want to see a move, there must be the time element. Fully come, they were all with one accord in one place, still completely united in one place, one room. Not anyone was absent. There is one thing I've known from watching through the years. If people think something is important, they will show up. Why do people show up at a wedding? Because it's important. There is usually no absences. If someone's missing, probably something bad happened along the way. Yet when it comes to a church service, so many people might miss one here and there. What does that tell us? They don't think it's a priority. If they think something is a priority, they will be there. On the day of Pentecost, they were all there. Why? Because receiving the baptism of the Holy Ghost was a priority to all the believers. If you want something bad enough, it becomes a priority. That means you give the time. That means you are united, working together with the group, and you are physically there. If you think about it, these four things are really needed for a move of God. 1, prayer. 2, time. 3, unity. And 4, being there. When those 4 things are happening, the door for the power will be open. And we'll pick up with this in our next lesson.